So, in early 2026, the entire AI world had its eyes on New Delhi. And let me tell you, the India AI Impact Summit, well, it wasn't just another tech conference, not even close. This was a really bold attempt to redefine the entire global conversation we're having about AI, to shift it away from, doomsday scenarios and onto real, immediate impact.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the sheer scale of the event itself. Then we'll get into the big problem it was trying to fix, this kind of global divide in the AI world. After that, we'll explore India's big idea, their solution. We'll see what actual concrete promises came out of it, and then wrap up by asking, okay, what happens now?
Okay, first things first. To really get why this summit was such a big deal, you have to understand the scale we're talking about here. This was absolutely not your typical industry get-together. It was, in a lot of ways, completely unprecedented.
I mean, check this out. It didn't start with some boring keynote speech. No, it kicked off with a brand new Guinness World Record. We're talking about almost 250,000 students all pledging to use AI responsibly. Right out of the gate, that sends a huge message, right? This whole thing was going to be about getting everyone involved, about ethics on a massive, massive scale.
And that scale, it was just immense. I mean, this was the very first time a global AI summit this big was ever hosted in the global south. You had leaders from more than 100 countries, all the biggest names in tech, all in one place. And the goal? To map out a completely new direction for where AI is headed.
So you might be asking, why did we need a new direction anyway? Well, it's because there's this really deep, growing split right down the middle of the global AI conversation. And that's the divide this summit was built to tackle, head-on.
See, for a long time, the conversation, which was mostly led by the West, has been all about AI safety, rules, regulations, and these big, scary what-if scenarios. But for literally billions of people in the developing world, the priorities are just completely different. For them, it's all about how can we use AI right now to solve massive problems in things like healthcare, agriculture, and education.
And this is exactly where India stepped in. They came forward with a new vision, a new way of thinking, designed to bridge that very gap. And they called it an impact-first approach. The entire philosophy behind the summit was rooted in this ancient concept. And the idea is really simple, but incredibly powerful. Technology should be used for the good of everyone, for the happiness of all, not just for a handful of people. So they took that big idea and broke it down into 3 concrete pillars, which they called Sutras. These are people, planet, and progress. And look, this wasn't just some abstract philosophical stuff. This was meant to be a real blueprint, a guide for how to use AI to tackle the biggest challenges we face as humans, whether they're social, environmental, or economic. And to actually get it done, they broke those pillars down even further into 7 really practical working groups, or chakras. You can think of them as these super-focused task forces. So for instance, the people chakra would pull in experts from all over the world to figure out how to use AI to, say, improve healthcare in rural areas. Meanwhile, another group would be working on making sure AI is safe and that people from different cultures can trust it.
But look, this was never just about having a nice new philosophy. It was about getting real, tangible commitments to actually make it all happen.
And the tone was really set right from the very top. India's Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, he basically framed AI as this massive, historic disruption. And his point was, we, humanity, have to be the ones to steer it. We have to keep the controls in our hands and point it towards opportunity.
And that wasn't just talk. That ambition was backed by some serious money. A staggering $200 billion in new AI investment was announced. That's a huge signal that a massive amount of capital is now flowing into this new impact-first way of doing things.
Now, the real centerpiece of all this was something called the New Delhi Frontier AI Impact Commitments. Now, it's a voluntary pact, okay, but it is a huge deal. You had global giants like Google and OpenAI signing on, right alongside top Indian companies. And what they all agreed to do was to make sure AI actually works for different languages and cultures. And that is an absolutely critical step for the global south.
And again, this wasn't just some philosophical promise. The buy-in from the business world was enormous. I mean, we saw huge deals being made. Anthropic and Infosys teamed up, OpenAI and Tata struck a deal, you had massive investments in infrastructure from Blackstone, from the Adani Group, and then, get this, a combined $68 billion from Google, Microsoft, and Amazon for cloud infrastructure. This is not just talk. The actual foundation for this vision is being built as we speak.
So, okay, the summit was a success. It absolutely put a new agenda on the global table. But turning that agenda into a reality that everyone agrees on, Well, that's where the hard part really begins.
What's clear is that India has really positioned itself as this bridge power in the AI space, connecting the tech of the developed world with the needs of the global south. But trying to build one single, unified global approach from that position, yeah, that's where it starts to get tricky.
And that really brings us to the biggest question to come out of the whole summit. Can this new focus on development, can it actually get the whole world on the same page about how we should govern AI?
In this quote, it just perfectly sums up the biggest roadblock. In a pretty blunt statement made at the summit, a White House official basically said, "Nope, we totally reject global governance of AI." The US made it clear they prefer a market-driven approach, believing it keeps them competitive and helps innovation move faster. So this is the core tension that's going to define the future of AI. You've got this push for global cooperation and inclusive rules led by the global south on one side. And on the other, you have this powerful resistance to any kind of international oversight, led by the United States. And that leaves us with one final, kind of provocative thought. Maybe the real takeaway from the New Delhi summit isn't about whether it created global unity. Maybe, instead, it just fired the starting gun on a whole new kind of race. A race where the goal isn't to dominate, but to develop.